Every day, residents of Susquehanna County, Pennsylvania, awaken to sounds of life in the country. Life in rural America is a shrinking experience. People crowd into the suburbs and flock to the cities. Those who live close to nature find themselves increasingly isolated from the masses, and yet ever more in tune with their neighbors. There is a sense of community that reaches across field and forest to bind us together, one and all. Here, everyday living, and indeed much of our regional business, is still intrinsically tied to the land. In the early 19th century, settlers found their way into the region, attracted by the flowing river and rich soil. For generations, our forefathers worked tirelessly to carve out fledgling communities and rewarding lives, surrounded by shining blue lakes, fertile fields, and seemingly endless mountains. As they worked the land, infusing it with their labor and their love, they sowed seeds of determination that would ever after flower in the hearts of their descendants. While much of Middle America falls prey to overcrowding, increasing crime rates, and the casual disregard and pollution of natural resources, Susquehanna County has retained much of its pristine nature and old-fashioned values. The current Endless Mountains Health Systems facility can be found on Grow Avenue in Montrose, Pennsylvania, centrally located to many surrounding towns and villages.
I've lived in Montrose much of my life, and over the years there have been many occasions that I have needed to utilize the services of the clinic and the hospital. And I've been tremendously grateful for that, both personally, but primarily as a mother. I have 3 sons, and so there have been numerous occasions where I have had to go to the emergency room for one or the other of my 3 sons. I think I have the distinction of being one of the few mothers I know who has 2 sons who broke both of their wrists at the same time, not at the same time as each other. One was quite young, he was in grade school. The other one was a little bit older and received excellent services at the emergency room facility and were then referred for further services. The most stressful of the situations undoubtedly occurred when my eldest son had an emergency appendectomy. I was away for the weekend. I was the matron of honor in a wedding and was not close enough to get back in time to be with my son for the surgery. I knew that he would be well cared for, and that was incredibly reassuring as a parent. The most amusing situation no doubt occurred when my middle son, who at the time was 10, had been fishing and got a fish hook in his little finger. Dr. Rucker had just arrived at Montrose and indicated that because he's from Philadelphia, it certainly would have been a lot more usual for him to be treating a gunshot wound than a fish hook in a little guy's little finger. But it worked out really well, and so as a family, we're tremendously grateful for the services.
Traveling about the region, you might pass through New Milford, Harford, Dimmock, Franklin Township, and other charming hamlets. Endless Mountains Health Systems coverage area extends south to Nicholson, east to Thompson, north to include New York's southern tier, and west as far as Laraysville. We offer a licensed 22-bed acute care hospital, a variety of outpatient services, a short procedure unit, emergency capabilities, and various ancillary services. EMHS also provides space for physicians who operate as independent contractors in a number of specialty fields.
I'm a resident of Susquehanna County for over 35 years. I'm also an associate dean of the College of Medicine in New York State, and have been on the faculty of the College of Medicine for 26 years. I became involved with the hospital directly in 1992 with the Community Corporation when we attempted to rescue the hospital from closure when the proprietors were thinking of retiring, and the hospital had very few options for its continuation. At the time, as a resident, I was very concerned with the critical access that this hospital presents to the population of western Susquehanna County. There's about 25,000 people living here. Most of them are older, probably 20 to 30%, or 60 or over. And the climate and the weather, driving conditions make access to hospitals in the city very difficult. So the hospital is extremely important, the doctor services and the hospital services, for the health care of the community. So the critical access issue was extremely important to me, both as a health professional and personally. I had an experience in January of 2002 where I was at home here in the Brooklyn area, and I had what I consider to be a heart attack. I thought it was a heart attack. It was presenting very differently, but I went to the hospital and that was confirmed, and they stabilized me and transferred me to a nearby cardiac center. I was glad the hospital was here because I did not have to drive 35 or 40 miles with having a heart attack to get care. The other thing that I noticed when I was a patient at the hospital was that there was great attention paid to quality. The way the care is provided, the professionals are well trained, the staff is well trained, and most importantly, they care about you as an individual and as a person, which is very different than what you find in healthcare in the city today. So the quality of care, the caring of the individuals, and the training of the staff was very adequate, more than adequate. It was excellent.
A desperate need for local quality health care inspired two families to found EMHS as the original medical arts hospital back in 1956. We are grateful to Dr. Raymond Bennett, Eudora Bennett, RN, Dr. Paul Kerr, and Donna Kerr, RN, for their foresight, determination, and sheer force of will.
I'm pleased to be here today to talk to you about my association with EMHS. EMHS has been my healthcare provider since the early 1960s. We're very fortunate to have had the facility started by the Bennetts and the Kerrs, and now owned by the community. I was part of the original committee that started meeting in September of 1992 to formulate plans to purchase the facilities from the original founders. I'm pleased with the progress that we have been able to make at the facility due to the community support and, of course, all of the patients that use it.
Over the years, the mission of EMHS has remained constant: to positively impact the health of the people we serve and to continue to strive for excellence in all things. We are a not-for-profit corporation committed to the operation and development of a health system which provides optimum care within the scope of its abilities. The key elements in the EMHS process are quality, service, cost, flexibility, access, and safety.
About 19 months ago, I woke up one morning dizzy and a hootie owl. And I said to my wife, I said, you better take me into the clinic. My doctor was Dr. Spicer, and he looked at me and he said, well, you might have had a stroke or you might have had some vascular problems. But he said, we want to check you in. We'll put a heart monitor on you and check you out for the next 24 hours. Well, they put me in a bed and things were going along okay. And that night, the nurse came in and she said, Mr. Hill, are you okay? And I said, yeah, I'm okay. Why? She says, you're setting all the bells and whistles off out here. Your heart's flip-flopping all over the place. Well, I got through the night, and next day I had breakfast, and at lunchtime my wife came in to visit me, and a lady friend of ours came in, and I was sitting there talking to them, and all of a sudden, down I went. And I think every doctor and every nurse in this hospital was at my bedside, and the next thing I knew, I was being shocked and taken down to ICU because my heart had actually stopped. So I'm actually thankful to give this testimony today, because if it wasn't for this clinic and this hospital, I wouldn't be here talking to you today. This hospital is so needed in this community, and I'm sure there are many other people who could tell you how this hospital was instrumental in saving their lives.
My name's Hazel. I worked for Montrose Hospital, but that's not the reason I'm here today. I'd like to talk about the experience that I just had recently, just before Christmas. We found a mass, which was on the lung, which to me meant cancer. My family and I were pretty upset 24 hours a day. I myself tried to make everybody feel better because of the fact that I thought I should. My daughter tried to do the same for me. The hospital did it for us both. And when you're in Montrose as a patient, everyone considers you as a person. You're not a number. You're not anything except someone that they enjoy taking care of. They, I'm sure, have bad days as well as the rest of us, but they do continually work and care for all our patients. The patients, and myself included, they would come in, they would talk to me. They would soothe me. They knew I couldn't sleep because I was worried.
In a 2003 state-funded review commissioned by the Pennsylvania Office of Rural Health and authored by Stroudwater Associates, EMHS excelled in every category except one: the state of our facilities. The review board's conclusions reinforced a fact that has become increasingly apparent to both staff and patients. The challenging conditions of old buildings and patchwork trailers stand in the way of advancing our quality of care. Introducing Endless Possibilities, an Endless Mountains Area initiative, the campaign to build a new healthcare facility.
As a member of the board of directors of the Endless Mountains Health Systems, I see my role as really a representative of the community, at least when I'm attending the meetings and we discuss issues. I'm looking at it from the perspective of the people in our neighborhoods, our families, our employees, what's best for them. And we realize that in order to have good health care in our community, we need a good staff, and we have a good staff. We also need good doctors, and in order to attract good doctors, you need a situation that is both professionally and economically sustaining and satisfying to the physicians. We have some great physicians, and of course, we'd like to keep them. I had an interesting experience not long ago when I was out in Nebraska attending a special function, an event, and someone saw my name tag and said, "Oh, Montrose, Pennsylvania." And they said that they had spent their vacation in Montrose, not where they'd planned to, but in the hospital here in Montrose. And the woman told how she had become ill as they were driving into town and immediately went to the hospital instead of their vacation destination. They, of course, didn't know I was a member of the board, so after they told me a little bit about their experience, I took advantage to do a little detective work and find out what kind of reaction they had to our facilities. So I said, "Well, how were you treated at Endless Mountains Health System?" And her face just lit up, and she just glowed with praise about how wonderful she was treated, how well the doctor had diagnosed her unusual situation and got treatment started right away, how wonderful the staff was to her. And then she commented that they'd been in other emergency situations with members of their family, and the care and the concern and the treatment they received in those situations was nowhere near as good as what they received here. So it's always good to be hundreds of miles away from home and to meet people who have a good impression of their unplanned stay in our hospital.
We must build a new healthcare facility in order to maintain our quality of life. For a region to sustain itself, it must offer excellence in both education and healthcare. Otherwise, it will struggle to attract and retain viable employers. Without the resulting influx of new people and innovative ideas, residents can suffer a dramatic decline in their quality of life.
On December 18th, 1998, I was at a conference in Penn State, and I had received a phone call about 10:30 at night. It was my friend's wife telling me to call my home because my wife had been taken to the hospital. I called home, there was no message, and I finally called the hospital and found out that my wife had had a severe heart attack. She was immediately treated at Endless Mountain Health System and flown to Sayre Hospital by helicopter. That night was a long night. I spent hours pacing the floor. I finally got through to Sarah and they told me that she was stabilized. They'd gone in and did a stent, but due to the immediate response they had with the doctors at Endless Mountain Health System, that she'd have very little damage to her heart, and they saved her life. 4 years later, she had another heart attack. I was in a parade at that time, and I would just got on the green in Montrose when an EMA director told me that the ambulance was on my way to my residence. I followed them up and found my wife on the floor. My son and I went to the hospital, right behind the ambulance, while they were trying to stabilize her with another heart attack. The doctors had to put the paddle on her 3 times. My son and I just stood there and just outside the emergency room, wondering if she was going to live. And they stabilized her, put her in a helicopter once again and sent her to Sarah. And they said if she hadn't had the treatment right then, that she would have perished.
We must build a new healthcare facility because other hospitals are too far away. To the east of EMHS, it's about an hour's drive to Barnes-Kasson Hospital in Susquehanna and 50 minutes south to Tyler Memorial Hospital in Tunkhannock. Binghamton General Hospital and Lourdes Memorial Hospital, both in New York State, are over an hour away and have an added complication. Insurance restrictions make out-of-state treatment difficult or even impossible for some patients.
My first experience with the Endless Mountain Health Systems was when it was called the Montrose General Hospital. And I was a patient there at that time for some minor things like coughs and flu shots and things of that nature. But my main connection with the Endless Mountain Health System occurred about 4 years ago when I had a heart attack in my car. I was working and heading back to my office when I started to have chest pains and pain in the left arm and started to perspire profusely. And I knew exactly what was happening to me. And I managed to stagger into a bank down in Hop Bottom. And the people at the bank called the emergency number, and I was picked up at the bank by the ambulance and transported to the Endless Mountain Health System. One of the few things that I remember when I arrived was at the door of the emergency room I was met by Dr. Speicher and I believe 2 or 3 nurses. And that gives you an indication of the kind of service that they gave. I was provided with some kind of medication that was brand new at the time that apparently was supposed to reduce the impact that a heart attack would have on the heart muscle. And it must have done quite a lot of good for me because I was only in the hospital for about 4 days when I was released, and I didn't need to have any surgery. And since then I have been going through a regimen of exercise and diet, and I make 6-month visits to the hospital here. And so my experience with the Endless Mountain Health System has been excellent. And I think I probably owe them my life.
We must build a new healthcare facility because our population and demand for services continues to grow. According to a study by Stroudwater Associates, inpatient market share held by 2 other regional hospitals decreased from the year 2000 to 2003. In contrast, inpatient market share held by EMHS increased by 4% over that same period of time. Additionally, the 2000 U.S. Census indicated a 4.6% growth in Susquehanna County's population over the last 10 years, 1% higher than the state average.
Although I am an employee of Endless Mountains Health Systems, I'm here today to talk about the quality of care that you receive from there. My family and I have gone there for many years. The doctors are very caring and very willing to help with any kind of problems you have. We would go nowhere else.
We must build a new healthcare facility so that EMHS can continue to make strong economic contributions to our region. Tallied together, our annual payroll and the ensuing ripple effect of those dollars makes a long-term annual economic impact on our region of almost $17 million.
The economic impact that EMHS has on the community is significant. 140 employees, full and part-time, many professional people are employed there, technicians, etc. The doctors, we have a tremendous staff of doctors. Every specialty that's needed is at EMHS today. Further comments on the economic impact of the community. Having been a Susquehanna County Planning Director for some time, I'm well aware of the need for economic stimulus throughout the county. With an excess of $3 million, close to $4 million in annual payroll, the impact on the community-wide area is great. We need to do more of that.
I have a rare incurable illness. The only treatment for that is a bone marrow transplant eventually. Right now I can be treated by Gleevec, which is an oral chemotherapy, and it's my choice to get that treatment here at Endless Mountains Health System rather than spend 4 or 5 hours on the road traveling to New York City when I can get that same expert treatment right here in my hometown.
In mid-June of 1988, I suffered a heart attack at work at the age of 42. I had a coworker take me to Montrose General, less than a mile away, which is now EMHS. I was treated by Dr. Spicer, who's still my doctor. I went into the hospital around noontime on that day, and at that time, the drug TPA, the clot buster, was brand new in the medical field. And I was fortunate enough that a small hospital in a small town had TPA in their pharmacy. Dr. Spicer administered that to me. If I recall, that was on a Wednesday, and broke up the clot that caused my heart attack. And less than 24 hours later, I was transferred to a larger hospital, Robert Packer in Sayre, where I had an angioplasty, and left there on Sunday and asked the cardiologist when I could return to work, and he asked me, when would you normally go to work? And I said, Monday. He said, that's good, which I did. He told me at the time that had it not been for the care that I received at EMHS and Dr. Spicer, that I would have probably been in for much more serious surgery and a much longer recovery time. And I've been ever grateful, especially to Dr. Spicer and Montrose General. It's very important for a small town to have a medical facility like we have. And I'm just one story. I know a lot of others that have been fortunate like I to have the same care and quick recovery.
The proposed site for the new facility is an 11-acre parcel on the southern edge of Montrose, along an active stretch of roadway central to many of the area's major facilities. And although we have worked hard to achieve what we have right now, we can do better. We need an infrastructure that can support today's state-of-the-art technologies. We need to improve access and safety. We need to integrate our campus and streamline administrative functions. We need better facilities for staff training and community education. We need to expand our services. We need additional patient rooms. We need more job opportunities in this region. We need more parking. We can do better. By increasing efficiencies in building maintenance and overhead, we will conserve financial and natural resources, promoting fair and reasonable fee management.
I'm the personal care home administrator.
at Gracious Living Estates in South Montrose, Pennsylvania. We are a 60-bed facility with about 55 residents, and I make 4 to 5 trips to Endless Mountains Health System every single week. I probably use it more than anyone else I know, and I spend a great deal of time there. I'm always thinking as I'm sitting in the facility waiting to be taken care of, how lucky we are to have a hospital, clinic, and doctors of the caliber that we have in northeastern Pennsylvania. And I do not see how facilities like mine or the community in general could survive without having that facility there.
The goal of this capital campaign has been set at $25 million, of which we plan to raise $1 to $2 million locally. We are confident that with your help, this once-in-a-lifetime achievement will be accomplished on behalf of our children and theirs.
We have worked very hard to modernize equipment at the hospital, but it's now time to modernize the facility. We need a better plant, we need to update to state-of-the-art for rural health care, and that requires a new building. And so I would like to urge everyone who sees this presentation to get involved in supporting the hospital in its plans for acquiring a site and building a facility. I think it's very important for the health care of Western Susquehanna County, both personally and professionally, that everyone supports the effort.
If it were not for Endless Mountains Health System, I would have to take my residents 50 miles to Susquehanna or 25 miles to Tunkhannock to get the same kind of services I can get within 4 miles of my facility. And it doesn't make any difference whether it's middle of the night. I always have a quality physician there on hand to tend to the needs of the residents, the senior citizens that I have at Gracious Living Estates. And I really am appreciative of the fact that we have that facility, and we need to take whatever steps are necessary to keep that facility there, and if necessary, support upgrading of those facilities so that we continue to have the high level of medical services that we have available in northeastern Pennsylvania.
Please support Endless Possibilities, the campaign to build a new healthcare facility for Endless Mountains Health Systems. For more information on how to give, recognition options, and naming opportunities, visit www.endlesscare.org or ask for a copy of the Endless Care Guide to Giving.
Ladies and gentlemen, we need community hospitals. I would like your support for Endless Mountain Health System. Thank you.
Thank you for your time and generosity.